Hi everybody, it's me Dimas. Hope everyone is doing well in the new year. It's been a while since I last made a book review video due to my studies here in Aberdeen, Scotland. But now that I have more time, I want to continue reviewing books that I've read and mostly that I loved. I normally read horror and thriller books because I tend to gravitate towards dark and suspenseful and foreboding stuff because I find them exciting and arresting. But I am also a sucker for comedies, especially broad, absurd comedies. I find these two genres, comedy and horror, actually go hand in hand since they both seek to elicit an immediate response from their audience, either a scream or a burst of laughter or even both. Since a little bit of humor can be found in the most uncomfortable and unfortunate situations. And likewise, a little bit of horror can be found even in the most amusing situations. Now, the reason I ramble about all of these things is because I recently read a book recommended to me by a good friend of mine that I find really funny to the point that I had to make a review out of it. That book is Dial A for Aunties by Jesse Sutanto. Now, as you can see, this is not a horror book. It is actually a romantic comedy novel centered around a young Chinese-Indonesian woman named Madeline, or Maddie, who, like many Asians living in this era that rightfully promotes self-actualization and independence, has to negotiate between conforming to her family's expectations in order to keep herself safe within the confines of tradition, or pursuing her own aspirations, which may be risky but may lead to her happiness. Now, if that general summary of the novel's plot resembles many other romantic comedies, it is because the novel really plays into the formula of the genre, but only to a certain degree. Because the broad comedy element in this book makes it transcends the genre into a farcical comedy territory, which makes everything, even the more predictable bits, feels fresh and unpredictable. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I should probably explain the characters and the plot a little bit more so you can get a sense of how ridiculous and fun the book really is. So, like I said before, the novel is centered around a Chinese-Indonesian woman living in California named Maddie. She lives with her overbearing but loving single mother and is always surrounded by her three lively, bickering but ultimately loving aunties, who are all very privy to her personal life, and all of them live in the same neighborhood. Unfortunately for Maddie, she cannot really escape her mother's and her auntie's incessant pressure to find a husband, not only because of the close-knit quality of her family, and many Asian families for that matter, but also because Maddie is working with her mother and aunties in a family business that, unfortunately for Maddie, specializes in weddings. Now, in this wedding business, every family member has her own task. The oldest aunt, which the book mainly refers to as Big Aunt, the most fearsome of all the aunties, does the wedding cakes. Second aunt does hair and makeup. Maddie's mom does the flower arrangements. Fourth aunt, a delusional former child star, does the wedding songs. And finally, Maddie is the reluctant wedding photographer. The story begins with the family discussing the final preparation for their biggest job yet, catering for a wedding of two wealthy Indonesian families, which will be held in a luxurious resort on a private island that weekend. However, the discussion quickly turns into Maddie's mother's request for her daughter to meet a blind date. It turns out Maddie's mother has been secretly going on a dating site, pretending to be her daughter for weeks in search of a perfect husband for her daughter. She eventually chatted with a guy who claimed to be a successful hotel owner named Jake. And as fate would have it, he turns out to be the owner of the resort where the Indonesian billionaire's wedding is going to take place. Feeling mortified by what her mother did, Maddie refused to meet the guy at first, but eventually gives in because she doesn't want to risk messing up her family's biggest wedding job, even in the slightest bit, seeing that her date is the owner of the hotel. So Maddie turns up to meet her blind date, Jake, that night. And it doesn't take long for her to see that Jake is kind of a jerk. He is boastful about his success, obnoxious, and very inappropriate. His worst offense comes when he tries to force himself into Maddie when he drives her home, forcing Maddie to retaliate and defend herself, resulting in Jake dying. Now, from this point on, the novel incorporates a subversion that I rarely see in romantic comedies, where the meet cute turns out to be deadly. And the girl ended up not having a relationship with her date, but ended up killing him. and it gets more outrageous and hilarious as the story progresses, especially after Maddie's mom and her aunties get involved. I seriously laughed out loud at how, after being informed about the existence of a dead body in Maddie's car, her mom and aunties responded by discussing calmly about how to get rid of the body, all while eating mangoes and dragon fruits in the dining room. The situation gets more and more preposterous when the corpse, which is now hidden in the cooler box, accidentally gets shipped to the island where the wedding is going to take place. So now, Maddie and her family have to try to do their job professionally while simultaneously trying to hide a grown man's body from thousands of guests and hotel staff. It doesn't help matters that her aunties rarely see eye to eye as to what's the best thing to do for the situation, which makes for many close calls and hilarious scenes. To complicate matters even more, Maddie reunites with her old flame Nathan, who is now a successful businessman. Both Nathan and Maddie still love each other and are desperate to have a private talk, but the constant mishaps with the corpse always disrupt any chance of them having a private moment together. I must say that the real stars of the novel really are the aunties and their unpredictable remarks and actions. They talk in a mix of English and Indonesian, which becomes the source of many misunderstandings and comedic moments. While they sometimes are depicted in a cartoonish way which risks reinforcing stereotypical Asian characters, it is all balanced out by the genuine care and love that they have towards Maddie, making them really endearing characters. The romantic subplot involving Maddie and Nathan plays out pretty much like many other romantic comedies. Fortunately, the zany comedy involving the aunties and the corpse takes center stage here, resulting in a fresh and unpredictable entry into the romantic comedy genre. Now, I probably find it funny because I am an Indonesian and I understand the many funny Indonesian phrases and remarks that the aunties make, but when I asked my friend who first recommended the book to me, they said that they understood them just fine and they got the jokes and find them really entertaining. So I think the book will appeal to people who like light, zany, broad comedy. Bear in mind though that it is not a crude kind of comedy, it still plays within the safe space of the romantic comedy genre. But if you are in the mood for something light, funny, and a little bit absurd, I would suggest you try reading this one. I am very pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed reading it. So, all in all, I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I saw on the internet that this book has been acquired by Netflix to be made into a movie. So, I would be interested to see whom they cast for the movie since all of the main characters have Indonesian roots, so probably and hopefully they would cast Indonesian actors. And I hope the filmmakers can retain and nail the zany comedy aspect because this is the element that I think gives the book so much spark. So that is my first ever non-horror book review of Dial A for Aunties by Jesse Sutanto. Do you have a book that is outside of your favorite genre that you surprisingly enjoyed? Share with me in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you again in the next book review video.